Hello YouTube! It is time for my first Kingdom review! So let's get it on. So, in this story, Qin and Wei fought this war, and Qin is returning victorious, so he's returned home victorious. And where the episode picks up is where we see that everybody has come to the main palace to celebrate. And not just to celebrate, but also for the generals who did very well to get the rewards for their victories or for their achievements in the war. So this scene was really interesting. It was funny because, well, we have Mango, the general, the main supreme commander, and he's up there, and you have all not romantic, but this grand music, and he's going up there and he's accepting his award for his role in defeating the main army and everything, and he is like, dignified and all that stuff. So he gets his reward. Then the next guy is Huan Ji, the vice captain who slew one of the supreme commander, not the supreme commanders, but one of the main generals on the other side. So he goes up there, and this was very interesting. He goes up there, he's getting his reward, and they're saying, you're getting 2,000 pieces of gold and 10 treasures and all this other stuff. But then he pauses because he's like, so this is the king who's getting power taken away from him from his minister. And he looks at him and says, let's see what kind of eyes he has. But when he looks at the king, Zhang, he sees there's this intensity in his light. So he's like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be some pampered kid who didn't know what he was up to. Why do I see this fierce light in his eye? And because he looks up at Zhang, and Zhang looks back at him, and it's this intense glare. So he ends up, okay, whatever. So then he gets his reward, he goes back and sits with this guy. Then it's Shin's turn to get his reward for his role. So Shin goes up there, and he's as nervous as crazy. He's walking like he's got an egg between his legs. Barely moves, but he makes it up there to the front of the stage, and we see that Zhang is there, and he's there, and he's looking at him. He's all proud and happy, and because we know that from before in the other episodes, that he was very pivotal in changing the whole course of the battle and the whole course of the strategy, because he defeated Lem Po's vice captain that was leading that charge, who was very powerful. I think his name was Lu Hun or something like that. I may be wrong, but it was Lu something. It started with an L. Anyway, so he goes up there and he gets the gift. He gets the gift, and it was like, in that moment, it was so perfect, so surreal, because it was like everybody in that room was seeing the future. Even though, like, Shin at this point, he was a very low ranked general, a 300-man general or captain or whatever. People seeing him with the king, who's also a teenager, you could see that there was something there. There was a chemistry, so to speak, that was there between the two characters. So that was interesting. So what was also interesting about this particular scene is that Lu Bai, I know I'm not pronouncing the Chinese correctly, but Lu Bai is also there, the minister, and Shin notices that all the enemies of the king are still there. So for those of you who haven't been following the story, there's been this competition between the king and then the counselors. So the court has been split into two. You have the king, and you have the counselors. Now the problem is that because he's not an adult, he's not going to get the full rights to his kingdom until he's 21. So meanwhile, during that time, other people are scheming against him to try to take over his throne. But anyway, so moving along, after the ceremony is over and everything, we see that Zhang. By the way, Zhang is the king. That's his name. He'll later get the name Shi Huangdi and everything. But right now, his name for this part of the story is Zhang. So Zhang and Shin are outside on the battlements of the palace, and they're talking. And Shin says something very important to Zhang. He tells him that you know, your goal is now my goal. Your goal is now my goal, and that is the uniting of China. And then Zheng looks at him like surprised, like, wow, where did this come from? And he explains to him that, you know, when he came across the enemy main commander, he was talking about how Shin was talking about how he wanted to surpass all those guys, you know, the generals, the three diva generals of Zhao, the great six generals of Shin, all those guys who are mighty. And basically Lin Pao was saying, we dominated that era. We conquered. We sent a million. We slaughtered like we slaughtered like millions of guys. You know, so you can also go across this country and rampage from one end to the other, and you still won't surpass us. You still won't be better than us, because remember that, or those of you who are now catching on to the series, Shin Shin's greatest goal is to become the world's greatest general, or to become the greatest general under heaven. That is his goal. That is his ultimate goal. So so basically Shin is telling them was telling Limpo that, you know, there's nothing I can do. I can't. That's not something I can affect. How else can I surpass you? And that's when Limpo says, you have to do something that none of us has been able to accomplish, and that is the uniting of China. Nobody has done that. So Shin, when he's talking to Zheng the king, he's saying that he's right, you know, nobody has done that. So whatever it takes, because that is now my goal, is to surpass all the generals before me. I'm going to work to help you unite China. So that was very key. But anyway, moving on to the rest of the episode, what we see is that even though the war is over, there's still some small skirmishes between the Qin army and the Wei army, between certain territories and other parts where they haven't, the surrender of the army hasn't, I guess, gotten to them or whatever. So you have some few units that need to be mopped up. And so Shin's unit, the Fei Shin unit, is going out to fight. Now, one of the rewards that Shin had was that he was promoted to from 300-man general to 1,000-man general. Now, as you remember, during the actual episodes before, he was temporary. What's it called? What is wrong with me? Why can I promoted? He was so annoying when that happens to you. Anyway, he was promoted temporary, but now that promotion has been made permanent. So during these skirmishes, however, he is leading the charge against these little soldiers, these enemies, and he's losing. He's losing badly, and he's just losing one battle after another. And so what's happened is that this rumor has gotten around that Shin may actually lose his promotion if things don't improve. So what's happened is that we learned something about Shin, and that is that he cannot strategize. Now, when his vice captain was there, Kwang Lei, the girl, and she was there, she was the one who was doing all the strategies. But remember, she has now left the army because she's gone to avenge her sister. So now that she's not there anymore. By the way, she was disguised as a guy, but now that she's not there anymore, now suddenly Shin's in trouble. He cannot plan. He can fight, but he cannot plan for battles. He's not a strategist. But, you know, at first when I was watching this, I was a little annoyed because I was like, how can you be a general if you can't plan a battle? All of them can plan. They're all strategists. So how can you lead? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, where is this going? So for those of you who know, don't tell me anything because I haven't caught up with the manga yet. I'm really reading as fast as I can, but I haven't caught up, so don't tell me. But for all those who haven't, like me, I'm watching this. I'm like, how do you become a general if you can't plan? I mean, that's basic. But the interesting thing is that this actually allows for the reintroduction of another character that we knew before, and that is Dio, the one who was with Shin when he was first starting out, when he was, you know, basically trying to find his way into the, you know, to help Zhang when Zhang was, you know, his brother had taken over from him and he was on his own right from the very beginning. The one who was in that coconut, that, you know, that coconut gear, you know, running around like this, and, you know, anyway. So yeah, she is the one who is found by Meng Tian, actually he's the Supreme Commander's son, no, grandson, and he comes and he basically tells Shin that I'm sorry, but you're bad at this. You've got no skills whatsoever. So he says, I've called for help. I'm gonna get you a strategist so that you can start winning these small skirmishes, because the way you guys are now, any of our elite units in our army would massacre you. So then at the end of the episode, we see that it is indeed Diao, and she pops up her thing, and she's the one who's going to become their strategist. Now, my thoughts on the chapter. Apart from all those other things, we got some character development. Here's my thing about Shin. Shin reminds me of Ichigo, except he's worse. You know how Ichigo in Bleach, he has a temper and he charges headlong into battle and all that stuff. And Shin's the same way. But one thing about Ichigo is that when he was fighting, he would think, he was plan, he would strategize. But with Shin, it's just like, he just goes all out and then gets frustrated when things don't work out the same way. And he's kind of a blockhead because he does something over and over and over and over and over again, even though it produces exactly the same result. So I'm hoping that throughout the story we'll see some better development from him. I want to see him become smart. I want to see him know how to plan. I don't want it to be that we have this other character, Diao, to be the strategist just because we need more characters out there. I want him to develop as a character and portray some traits that, if he is going to become the greatest general on Earth or help unite China, he's got to learn how to strategize. At some point, he can't be the same guy. I mean, look at Ichigo in Bleach. He's not the same guy. He's matured over some time, and it's grown over a long stretch of period, but you see it. The Ichigo we're going to see at the end of the Thousand Blood War arc is not the same Ichigo that you saw at the very beginning of Bleach. It's just not. So that's what I'm hoping for. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I thought of the episode. My overall rating is gonna be an 8.5 over 10. It was a pretty good chapter. It really was. It's basically wrapping up the war, and we're heading off in another direction. I don't know if this is the last episode of this season. I don't think so. No, it's not. But anyway, thank you for watching. This has been TA The Crossover, signing out.